can happen in 6 months' time. And for me, the last 6 months have been life-changing. You see, I am on a weight loss journey using lifestyle modification and a little help from some compounded Tirzepatide. So if you're considering a GLP-1 or even just curious about what the first 6 months on a GLP-1 could look like, today I will be going over my results for my first 6 months on compounded Tirzepatide, and I'll be recapping week by week how much weight I lost, what my struggles were for that week, any side effects that I've experienced, and at the end I'm even gonna show what my measurements were in the beginning and what they are now, with a total of how many inches I've lost. Hi, my name is Pamela if you're new here, and I have just completed 6 months on my compounded Tirzepatide weight loss journey. So today we're going to talk about it. I'm getting a drink because I know that with all of this talking I'm going to be doing, my throat's going to be dry. So I have my PK or Pure Kick hydration in Concord grape flavor. This is what the box looks like if you're interested. And I'm a little sad because that was my last packet of the grape. And when I went to the grocery store the other day, they didn't have any more of the grape. And it's one of my favorite flavors. So hopefully they'll have it this weekend. So let me just shake this up. So let's get right into it. I started my weight loss journey on compounded Tirzepatide on November 22nd of 2024. At that time, I was 196.9 pounds, and I am 5'2". I am 54 years old, postmenopausal, and I was prescribed compounded Tirzepatide, started at the 2.5 milligram dose on November 22nd of 2024. And when I took my first injection, I was a little nervous. I was not sure how this was gonna work. I didn't know if it was gonna work. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I was gonna automatically feel nauseous, if I was gonna feel any burning when I did the injection. I was kind of scared of the needle to, like I can go to the doctor and get an injection or give blood or whatever, have blood drawn. And that's fine, but actually poking myself with a needle, that's a different story. The thought of poking myself with a needle is, your body just tries to self-preserve, and when you're inflicting pain on yourself, there's just something counterintuitive to that where, you want to stop the pain, but so I was scared it was gonna hurt and I wasn't gonna be able to do the injection. However, it did not hurt at all. I felt like a slight pinch, and it was not painful. It was just a little bitty prick, and the needle is so small, I barely even felt it. And so I took my first injection, and within about 10 minutes, I started to feel a little bit of cotton mouth and just a little thirsty, and I was nervous. I couldn't sleep that night, and I don't know if it was the medicine that kept me up. It could be because the compound that I had niacinamide in it, or it could just have been the nerves. And I did not intend to tell anybody in my family that I was starting a GLP-1. I was just gonna keep it my little secret. But I was so nervous that night. I had to text my daughter and tell her, because I was like, if I don't wake up tomorrow, I want somebody to know what happened. After my first week, I weighed in at 192.9 pounds. So that was a 4-point loss in the first week. I was ecstatic because I started the week before Thanksgiving. So I had to go through Thanksgiving and still lost 4 pounds. I could not imagine doing that on my own, having been stuck at the 196 or upper 190s for so long. So I was excited for my next injection. So when I did my second injection, by this time I'm feeling like I'm a pro. I wasn't worried about the injection at all. I knew it wasn't gonna hurt, and I was excited with my results. So I was ready. I gave my injection, no problem. I weighed in at the end of the second week at 188.5. So that was another loss of 4.4 pounds from week 1 and a total loss of 8.4 pounds from my starting weight. Now, this is 2 weeks in, almost 10 pounds down. I am over the moon. I didn't really have any side effects yet, but what I did notice was that I already was not wanting to drink my morning coffee, which was a staple for me. And to this day, I still do not have a taste for coffee. And I wasn't one that loaded up my coffee with sugar. I would use Jordan skinny syrup with the flavors in it and a little bit of heavy cream, and that was it. So now I just don't even drink it at all. After my second week was when I started to feel a little bit of the constipation. And I started taking Dulcolax, and that was able to manage it. I actually went out of town for a Secret Santa gift exchange that I do every year with my 2 besties, and still managed to come in at 187.4 pounds. So that was only a 1.1 pound loss from the week before. I did have a few drinks while we were out. I did eat, some things that I normally wouldn't eat just because we were eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner out. And it was only a weekend getaway, but yeah, I think that probably contributed. But I was still 9.5 pounds down from my starting weight. So again, I'm ecstatic. Now, when I came home from this trip, I will tell you, I was constipated. I could not wait to get home and take some medicine and go to the bathroom. I will say that I was a little bit disappointed at that point because the first 2 weeks really just blew me away, and I was really hoping that I was gonna see something similar. But that's when I started to realize that I'm not gonna lose 4 pounds every week. Not only is that unheard of, that's a little dangerous. So it's starting to slow down, and I'm okay with it. I did have some headaches that week, but I think looking back at the end of the week that it might have been more related to stress. I had a lot going on with work, and my appetite suppression was great. Going into my 4th week, I weighed in, or at the end of my 4th week, I weighed in at 185.8 pounds. So that's another 1.6 pounds lost from week 3. And now I'm at 11.1 pounds down. I am so happy with my first month results. At this point, I'm at the end of 4 weeks, and it's time to titrate up. But my food suppression was great. I was still losing weight. I didn't want to titrate up. And when I got my prescription, my provider did say that if the medication is still working, that I don't need to titrate up, that I can stay on the dose as long as it continues to work. So that's what I decided to do. My 5th week, I'm still on 2.5 milligrams. And at the end of the week, I weighed in at 186.3 pounds. Now I'm up a half a pound from the week before, and total loss is 10.6 pounds. Now, I did notice that there was an increase in the food noise, and that I was starting to snack a little bit more this week. For week 6, I decided I was gonna go ahead and titrate up to the 5 milligrams. And oh my goodness, I could not eat. 5 milligrams was just way too much for me. I was constipated. I was not able to get my protein in. I was not able to meet calorie goals. I was just not having it. And on top of it, I was sick that week. I had a sore throat and some congestion. Also had somewhat of a stomach bug. So this week when I weighed in, I was 183 pounds even. So that was a loss of 3.3 pounds from the week before, and now I'm down 13.9 pounds. So yeah, the medicine, the 5 milligrams, it helped me to lose weight after a gain the week before, but it was too much. I needed to go back down a little bit. And after speaking with my healthcare provider, we decided that I would go back down to 3.75 milligrams, which was an even 22 units for my prescription. That week, I weighed in at 179.9 pounds. So now I've lost 3.1 pounds from the week before. And after speaking with my provider, we decided that that was still a little bit too much because I was still having a problem eating, still having problems getting in my protein and getting enough calories. So then it was decided we would go back to the 2.5 milligrams until my body could tolerate it. So for week 8, I'm back at 2.5 milligrams, and at the end of this week, I weighed in at 178.8 pounds. So that is a loss of another 1.1 pound, and at this point, I'm down 18.1 pounds from my starting weight. So on week 8, I had a lot of constipation, which this is the week where I felt like I was dying.
Yo, this may be TMI, but I feel like I just had a baby. Lord, the constipation is real. Whew.
Now I'm taking Colace and I'm taking Ollie Keep It Moving gummies. I'm adding in everything I can, mirror fiber gummies and Docalax soft chews. With all of that, it did help relieve the constipation. And going forward after that, it's been much better. Now we're heading into week 9. I am now back up to 3.75 milligrams. And I'm still dealing with a little bit of constipation, not quite as bad. And by now I've added in the Mago 7, which I was a little scared to take at first because I thought it was gonna be a little too overpowering. Reading it, I thought it was more of a colon, which it is a colon cleanse. And I've had cleanses before where your stomach is just feeling like it's in knots and you feel like you're gonna die from the pain. And so I was a little scared to take it, but it was not like that at all. And at the end of week 9, I weighed in at 176.6 pounds. So now I'm down 2.2 pounds from the week before, and I have achieved over 20 pounds loss. I'm now at 20.3 pounds from my starting weight. For week 10, now I'm titrating up to 4.15 milligrams because now I'm starting to feel the food noise come back just a little bit. And so we are trying to get to the 5 milligram dose. So I'm at the 4.15 milligrams. I didn't really have any side effects that I noticed that week. And when I weighed in at the end of week 10, I was 176.6 pounds. So I didn't lose anything from the prior week and I didn't gain anything. I'm still at 20.3 pounds down. Week 11, I'm staying at the 4.15 milligrams because I'm still feeling the appetite suppression and the constipation, still dealing with it a little bit, but the Mago 7 is working for that. So I really didn't have any problems there. When I weighed in at the end of week 11, I am now at 173.7 pounds. So now I've lost 2.9 pounds from the week before and I am down 23.2 pounds going into week 12. So I am ecstatic. Week 12, I'm staying at the 4.15 because it's still working for me. And I weighed in at the end of week 12 at 171.5 pounds. So now I'm down a total of 25.4 pounds in 12 weeks. The only side effects that I had in week 12 was a little bit of nausea and a slight headache, but I think that the nausea was related to not eating enough, and it really only lasted about 10 minutes after I took my injection. And then the headaches, again, I related it to stress at work. All the stress that I'm having at work, I may need to find a new job, because it seems like, looking back on my week by week recap, there's been a lot of stress and headaches, and I'm always relating it back to work. Week 13 was a little bit different because now I am on a new compound. This one is from Hallandale. I switched. My original compound was from Empower and it had the niacinamide in it. Now I'm switching to just the pure Tirzepatide from Hallandale with no additives. And I am taking 4 milligrams. Since it was a new prescription, a new compound, I was gonna see how that went. So week 13, I took 4 milligrams. And when I weighed in at the end of that week, I was 170.2 pounds. So that's another loss of 1.3 pounds from week 12 and a total loss of 26.4 pounds. For week 14, I am still on the 4.15. I actually did increase it this week. I did have this week a slight sensation on my thigh. This was the first time I injected my thigh with the Hallandale compound, and I had a little bit of a burning sensation in my thigh and a lump, and it only lasted for a little bit, not even 30 minutes, I think maybe a little bit more than 30 minutes, and then it went away. I didn't have it the prior injection, and I didn't have it the injection after that. So other than that, I'm still feeling a little bit more of the food noise coming back. I weighed in at the end of week 14 at 170.2 pounds. So I didn't lose, I didn't gain, just stayed right there. And I think I attributed that to the increase in the food noise, causing me to eat more that week. So week 15, we decided I was gonna titrate up to 5 milligrams again, and hopefully this time not have any problems, since now I've kind of gradually stepped up. And I didn't. There were no problems with going up to the 5 milligrams. I did have a little bit of fatigue throughout the week, and I did have a little bit more constipation, but it was still being managed pretty well with the Mago 7. By this time, I've decided that I'm going to take the Mago 7 twice a week, and I take 3 capsules. So I usually would take them on Sunday night and Thursday night. That seemed to be working. I had a little bit of a headache throughout the week, but again, related it to stress and lack of sleep. So when I weighed in at the end of week 15, I was 168.2 pounds. So that's a 2-pound loss from the week before, and now I'm down a total of 28.7 pounds. So back on track. Going into week 16, I'm still taking 5 milligrams, and I'm happy with that. My food suppression is pretty good. I'm still able to eat, but I'm not overeating, and I'm managing the constipation still with the Mago 7, so I'm doing good. When I weighed in at the end of week 16, I was 167.3 pounds, and that put me now at 29.6 pounds, which I was just a little bit disappointed because, of course, 16 weeks is 4 months in, and I was so hoping to reach that 30-pound mark by my 4th month and just missed it by 0.4 pounds. Going into week 17, I'm still on 5 milligrams, and I actually stayed on 5 milligrams for quite a while after this. At this point, I'm starting to notice that my nails are getting a little bit more brittle and my hair is shedding a little bit more than normal. And I don't think I had noticed that earlier on because I was drinking a lot of clear protein. Now, I do still drink my protein shakes, but I was drinking a lot of clear protein as well early on in my journey. And then, as I had mentioned, around week 5 or so is when they started just tasting a little too sweet. So at this point, I was really only drinking my protein shakes in the morning and then trying to get my protein in through what I'm eating. I'm starting to notice that I'm not getting enough protein because my hair is shedding more and my nails are breaking more easily. And so this is when I started trying to really bump up my protein. I weighed in at the end of this week at 165.6 pounds. So that's another 1.7 pound loss from week 16. And now I'm at a total of 31.3 pounds down. For week 18, again, I'm staying at the 5 milligrams. And this week, I feel like I ate a little bit more than I normally would because remember, I'm trying to bump up my protein. So I had went and I had bought a bunch of protein snacks, protein bars, and just things that I could grab that would help boost my protein throughout the day. But I think having those extra snacks on hand led me to eating more when I wasn't really hungry. Seeing that throughout the day makes me more likely to eat a protein bar when I'm not necessarily hungry. I think that it contributed to me eating more that week. So when I weighed in at the end of week 18, I was, let me get a drum roll, 165.6 pounds. I didn't lose anything. I didn't gain anything. I'm still at 31.3 pounds. So for week 19, still on the 5 milligrams because I don't think it was the food noise per se. I'm not trying to bump up my dose yet because I feel like my food noise was still suppressed. I think it was just the fact of having those snacks in my face. So for week 19, I was really tired. And I think this was because I tried to do the opposite. The week before, I feel like I ate too much, and now I feel like I'm trying to backtrack and not eat as much. And so now I'm not getting enough calories in. And then also this was a really hectic week at work. I was working a lot of overtime. I already get up for my job at 5 o'clock in the morning. So then I'm working from 5 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the evening, and I'm not getting that much sleep. And it just is starting to take a toll on me. So at the end of week 19, I weighed in at 164 pounds. And so I did lose from the previous week. I lost 1.6 pounds. So now I'm down 32.9 pounds from my starting weight. And I've been tracking my food the whole time. I've been tracking my calories and tracking my protein intake. But the problem is, I feel like I was not meeting a set calorie goal. And so now I'm trying to bump up my calories so I can get more calories as well as getting more protein, and hoping that will help me increase my energy levels. So for week 20, again, I took my 5 milligram injection, and I weighed in at the end of week 20 at 162.6 pounds. So now I'm down almost another 1.5 pounds for a total of 34.3 pounds lost at the end of week 20. Now we're on week 21, and I'm still taking my 5 milligrams. So for week 21, I am trying to bump up my calories by 200 every week or so, and it seems to be working. I'm doing better with my energy levels, but when I weighed in at the end of week 21, I was 162.6 pounds. So again, I did not lose anything, but I kind of expected that. So I wasn't really disappointed. I'm just gonna keep pushing on and, keep heading towards my goal. So week 22, pretty uneventful. I'm still taking the 5 milligrams and trying to bump up my calories, and I am still feeling a little bit more energy with the increased calories. Now, I will say that this is about the time when I really started noticing the mental clarity that I was getting with not being so focused on food all the time. Because for those of us who experience food noise, it is consuming. And to the point where you're so focused on the food that you can't really focus on a lot of other things. And so at work, I was able to work. I was able to do my job and get things done. But at the same time, there's always in the back of my mind, what are we gonna eat? When is lunch? Is it lunchtime? Is it time to get ready for dinner? So it's always constantly going on in the back of your mind. But when that food noise stops, I was able to focus more on my work, which made me more productive. So this is the point where I'm really starting to notice that. And now it had been going on for some time since I had started my journey, but now is when I'm really just kind of catching wind of it, I guess. So at the end of week 22, I weighed in at 162.2 pounds. So that is a 0.4 pound loss from the week before. I'm now at 34.7 pounds lost since I started my journey. Not a very big loss, but again, I'm still trying to bump up my calories because even though I want to lose weight, I want to be able to have energy to do things and live life. So I'm not disappointed with the slowed loss, because my thought process is I'm looking for the overall goal. And as long as I'm continue to move in that direction, I'm good. So week 23, I am noticing the food noise starting to come back. And I don't know if it is because I had been increasing my calories, so like eating more, making me want to eat even more, or if it was just that my body was getting more used to the medication, which that's kind of what I attributed it to, because at this point I had been on 5 milligrams for 8 weeks or so. At the end of week 23, I weighed in at 162.2 pounds, which again was no loss from the week before. But that really did not have anything to do with me deciding to titrate up the next week. It was mainly because the food noise was getting to the point where it was starting to inhibit things again and making me want to eat more than I needed to. For week 24, I did titrate up to 5.95 milligrams. And of course, this was a joint decision because we knew going from my history, going from the 2.5 all the way up to 5 milligrams, I was not able to handle it. So our thought process was that if I jumped from 5 to 7.5, I would probably experience the same side effects, and we wanted to make sure that I was able to have a smoother transition. So I did titrate up to 5.95 milligrams. I weighed in at the end of week 24 at 161.4 pounds. So that is a loss of 0.8 pounds from the week before. I'm now down to 35.5 pounds. And for week 24, I did have significantly less food noise. So I was really happy with that. And I was tired a couple of days, but I just contributed it to the normal bumping up the dose, and it did subside after a couple of days. And I normally do, even still, I noticed that I take my injections on Friday, usually Saturday and Sunday. I'm kind of tired and I don't really want to do too much. It has gotten better over time, but there's still some weekends where I'm just like, I just want to veg out on the couch and don't bother me. So now we're winding down. We're almost at the end. I'm at week 25 and I am still on 5.95 milligrams. And this seems to be working pretty good for me at this point. Getting pretty good food suppression, but I'm still able to maintain around 15 to 1600 calories a day. But the problem that I'm finding now is that I'm having a problem meeting my protein goals. Sorry, I had my dog in here with me and his little nails were clickety clacking on the floor, and so it was a little bit distracting. So he's gone now. So I'm having a problem at this point meeting my protein goals. So I did have to try to find some creative ways to get my protein in, because we all know, make sure you get 30 grams of protein with each meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that'll put you at 90 for the day, and anything above that is just extra. But sometimes that's hard. So I did decide that I was gonna make sure that I at least have my 30 to 40 grams of protein every morning, which is no problem for me because y'all know I love my Fairlife shakes, and that's 30 grams of protein right there. And so if I have something on top of that that has protein, then I'm getting more than 30 grams with breakfast. And so that just kind of gets me off on the right foot in the mornings. And then I found some more nutritious protein snacks, like the roasted chickpeas that I got from Dr. Bobby. And so I tried those out and had those on hand. So now I'm having a little bit better success getting my protein in. I weighed in at the end of week 25 at 159.2 pounds. And guys, I can't tell you how happy I was to see that number, because I am down in the 150s. I had not been in the 150s in what, 20 something years maybe? I can't even tell you. I don't know. I've been at my job for 18 and a half years now. And I know when I started my job, I was around 170. And I have not been less than 165 since I've been at this job. So I know I wasn't in the 150s at any time within the last probably 20 years. So I'm through the roof. I cannot believe that something is finally working and that I've been able to get to this point. So I'm ecstatic with that. I am down 37.7 pounds from my starting weight at this point. And that takes me into week 26, the final week of my 6-month journey. I'm again taking 5.95 milligrams. I'm doing much better with meeting my protein goals and maintaining, sometimes closer to 1400, but around 1500 calories I think is my sweet spot, because I'm noticing that when I start to go over the 1500, not quite losing any weight or not as much, but when I'm staying between 14 to 1500, that's when I'm seeing the optimal 0.5 to 1 pound, maybe a little bit more loss on the scale. So that's where I'm trying to maintain at this point, and I'm doing pretty good with that. And I'm sorry if I'm a little distracted. There's some kids outside playing, and you know, it's just right across the street, right out my window. So if you hear them in the background, that's what it is. They're just having a good old time. And so it's a little distracting though, especially when there's cars going by and you're seeing the kids running close to the street. So makes me nervous. But back to the weight loss. So at the end of week 26, I weighed in at 189.2 and 57.8 pounds. So that is another 1.5 pounds lost and a total of 39.1 pounds. And here we are again, a milestone in my journey, the end of 6 months, and I'm just shy of 40 pounds lost. So a little bit crushing of my spirit, but I'm still so ecstatic because for someone who has been on weight loss journey after weight loss journey, diet after diet, exercise plan after exercise plan, and losing weight and then gaining it back, and losing more weight, gaining more back, to finally have something that I can see working long term, that's actually getting me more progress than I've ever seen before with my weight loss journey, is so satisfying and so life-changing. And it's really just made such a huge difference in my life. Overall, I've noticed the main thing is when I'm getting out of bed in the morning, I'm not stepping down and feeling pain in my feet automatically. I'm not walking around throughout the day and my feet are just aching. My best friend, one of the things that she always has me do is anytime we have get-togethers, she always wants me to cook. And I don't mind cooking, I love cooking, but standing on my feet for so long, because usually when we're cooking, we're either cooking something that's a big spread or we're cooking something that takes a long time to make. And standing on my feet for so long, I would be in so much pain. So a lot of times I wouldn't want to do it. And now I'm not feeling that anymore, and it's been life altering. And I can't tell you how thankful I am to have found this medication. So if you are on the fence about it, you're not sure, you thought about it, but you're a little scared, you're scared of the injection, you're scared of needles, you're just not sure, let me tell you that I would not change one thing about this journey. I would not go back and do it differently. I am so happy with my progress. I'm so happy that I finally gave in and decided to do this, because I was skeptical at first too. I was scared of the injections. I wanted to try and do it on my own, and I was just having a conversation with my daughter, and we both said the same thing, that she didn't want to do a GLP-1 either because she didn't want to do the injection. She wanted to do it on her own, and I was the same way. I wanted to do it on my own. I was going to push through, and I was just going to do it until I got to the point where I realized I needed help, and this GLP-1 was exactly the help that I needed, and I'm so thankful. And I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up because I know this video is quite long. I'm gonna put at the end, because I did not do the recap from the very beginning of my journey throughout each week or each month, my total inches lost. So I'm just gonna put that little screenshot in here from the beginning of my journey and the total inches lost. I do my measurements every 4 weeks. And I have my chart on my wall. If you've seen some of my previous videos, you've seen it, where I have all of my measurements from when I first started my journey, and every 4 weeks I update it. And that is just something that keeps me motivated and keeps me going. And just to remind everybody, it's not always about the number on the scale. Sometimes, and I don't know why I'm getting emotional. Y'all, I'm so off. Anyway, it's not always about the number on the scale. Sometimes the number on the scale may not be changing, but you're losing inches. or you're losing fat, but you're gaining muscle. Muscle is heavier than fat. Yes, a pound is a pound, but a pound of muscle is not equal to a pound of fat. If you lose 10 pounds of fat, but have 10 extra pounds of muscle, you're going to look smaller because muscle does not take up as much room. So, don't always focus on the number on the scale because that can be deceptive. Are there other things that are changing? Are your clothes fitting any better? Are you noticing that your joints are not hurting as much? Are you having less inflammation? Are you having less pain when you walk? Are you able to sleep better? Are you eating better? Those are some of the things that you need to focus on, not just the number on the scale. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up because I know this is gonna be way longer than I intended. But I thank you all so much for sticking around with me this long. And if you are still here, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. If you've stayed this long and you're not subscribed, come on now, what are you doing with your life? Obviously you stuck around for something. So hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. And I will see you guys next week.